see you guys in the dark.
This is something that happened to me 5 or so years ago. I was fresh out of university with my degree in international development. I wanted to help undeserved communities, develop meaningful projects, and see more of the world. I was young, I was naive, eager to get started. I took one of my first jobs that offered me a position. It wasn't something I necessarily wanted to do, but it was adjacent to my interests, and more important, took me to a place that I'd never been before. I loved everything when I arrived. It was beautiful, sunny, and green. My new coworkers, all local staff, were amazing and so kind. My boss invited me to play soccer on Sundays with his family. My fellow project coordinator would go out dancing with me on the weekends. My roommate, a fellow expat working in development as well, was a fun and spunky woman that I adored. I felt so blessed. Then one day, it changed. I was walking downtown with a friend. There was a vegetable and fruit market that had great, fresh produce directly from the farmers growing it. It was about a 20-minute bus ride from my apartment. So not close, but not incredibly far either. My friend and I loaded up and began walking over to a quiet corner to call a cab to help us haul our goods back. Then I heard it. Hey, miss. Then I heard my exact address. It took me a second to realize that he was shouting my address. I turned around to see a man hanging out of his car, slowly crawling along the road with us. My friend recognized my address too. She turned to me and asked, "Do you know him?" I've never seen him before. He just kept on shouting, "Hey you, you're living in the back house on the second floor, right?" That made it even worse. I lived on a big suburban lot with 2 houses, one in the front where my landlady and her family lived, and the second in the back house. The second house was split into 2 apartments. The bottom floor housed 2 students, while I lived on the second floor with my roommate. You couldn't see the second house from the road, much less the stairway that led to the second floor. My heart was pounding. I wanted to shout back at the guy, but I was scared. I was a 22-year-old woman living in a foreign country, and I didn't want to draw attention. I didn't know how people would react. I didn't know how he would react, so we walked. My friend tried to comfort me, saying that maybe he knew my landlady's family. I was probably the only redhead in the whole country. He would be a neighbor I hadn't met. The encounter didn't leave me. It stayed in my mind. A week or so had passed. I stopped glancing behind my back whenever a car would drive by. I started to feel secure. Then he showed up again. I was walking home from work. It was getting dark. My office was a 15 to 20-minute stroll from my apartment. Perfect as a quick way to stretch my legs. I was halfway home when I felt someone watching me. Then, the slow crawl of a car idling up beside me. I knew that it was him without even looking. "Miss," and then my address again, he said, leaning out of his window, one hand on the wheel. "Why, are you shy?" I ignored him and kept on walking. There was no one around. It was getting dark. "Come on," he said. "Let me give you a ride. I know where you live." Not reassuring. I started to feel my chest tighten. I wanted to call someone, but I didn't know what he'd do if I reached for my phone. I was practically jogging now, but he just sped up to match my pace. "Listen, bitch." Now he was angry. His voice was hard. "You don't just ignore a man like that." I wondered what I'd do if he stopped the car. He looked fit, young. He could probably catch me. He could hurt me. So I did something that, in retrospect, seemed absolutely bizarre. I yelled at him, wildly, rapidly. I did it in my first language, not that they spoke this in this country. Not a language that he would ever have heard, probably. I screamed curse words and threats, anything that I could think of. I'll never forget the confused fury on his face, but he did slow down, letting me run ahead. I could see a woman at a bus stop at the intersection ahead. If I got to her, maybe she could help me. Maybe he'd get scared off. By the time that I got to the woman, he was gone. I kept walking home, looking behind me with every step. I told my roommate about what had happened. She told me not to bother reporting it to the police, since they were corrupt and wouldn't do anything. When I told my boss, he told me the same. He said he had a baseball bat and would come whenever I called. I saw the man again 2 weeks later. He was sitting in his car, parked in front of the gates to my apartment. I was about to take out the trash, but retreated before he could see me. I told my landlady, and when she went over to confront him, he drove off. This continued for weeks, not every day, but once or twice a week. He was already there, waiting. I took cabs to and from work. I never traveled alone. I barely slept, waiting for him to break in and kill me. The last weekend abroad, he almost did. I went out drinking with a group of my friends, 4 of us in total. We were celebrating the end of my contract, and I was happy to go home in a few days. I couldn't wait to see my family. I couldn't wait to put an ocean between me and that man. We had beers at a local bar, a 5 to 10 minute walk max from my apartment. When it started to get late, probably around 1 o'clock, we tried to get a cab, but it was impossible. The roads were jammed, and people were everywhere outside. Cabs couldn't even get to us. Or so we thought. Even though others warned us not to. Let's walk home. It would be faster than calling a cab. We'll be fine. We're a group of 4. No one will hassle us. We got halfway there when we had to cross a main road. There were no street lights. Not that kind of place. The road was absolutely empty. Not a single car was in sight. We crossed the road. A few more minutes, but then we were backlit with a bright headlight of a car coming up. We glanced back. It was a cop car. 2 men in the front, and I knew, even though I couldn't see from the bright lights in my eyes, he was driving. He was a fucking cop. The Jeep slowed, as I knew it would. He rolled down the window to drawl. "Hey, miss," and then my address again. "Nice night, yeah?" My friends immediately knew who he was. I could see how nervous they were. We were alone on a dark, empty street, in the middle of the night. They were cops. So they were armed. No one would intervene, probably. It would be too dangerous. "You girls need a ride?" he leered. His friend, who I could now see, was grinning hugely. My last few days, I thought, and this is how it would end. We sped up our pace. I don't know what our plan was, other than to get away. When I heard one of the doors of the Jeep open as the passenger jumped out, I don't think I've ever been so scared in my life. Although I didn't dare turn back to see. We were at the turn to my street. 2 minutes more to get to safety. The car was right behind us. Whoever had gotten out of the car was right behind us. 2 of my friends were ahead now, while another clutched my hand and dragged me along. Then, out of nowhere, another car appeared. They were coming from the opposite direction. When they slowed to see what was going on, I've never been so grateful. It was an older couple, and they looked concerned. I think they knew something bad was about to happen. I heard, not saw, the car door swing open. I almost got hit as they sped past us in a hurry. The other car had stayed, watching. They offered to escort us home, driving alongside just in case. But I knew he wouldn't come back. Not tonight, at least. I still took a cab with my friends to their place for the night. We took my roommate with us, just in case. Nothing happened after that. My last 2 days were uneventful, although I couldn't shake the feeling that he might show up at any given moment. Driving to the airport, all packed up and ready to go home, my cab got pulled over by a cop. My stomach dropped. I couldn't breathe. It wasn't him, although it could have been. It wasn't until I got on the plane, until I landed in my home country, that I finally felt that terror leave me. I still get nervous when cars drive up behind me, when men roll down their windows to shout at me. It's never him, but still, you never know. Let's not meet again, stranger who knows where I live. This story takes place when I was around 16 or 17 years old. I lived with my dad in a little apartment in a very questionable area. It was the type of area you'd not want to be out in and when the sun goes down. Up until a certain time, like 10 or 11 p.m., there would be a cop or 2 in the area patrolling, making sure that there was no gang-related activity going on. I had a job at a restaurant in the city, which was about a 30-minute car ride and an hour-and-a-half train ride. The train was a couple of blocks away from my house. Since my dad was always too lazy or hungover to drive me, that was my main form of transportation. I went to work around 3 p.m. and would usually get home around 12 or 1 a.m. This was my schedule 4 days a week, aside from having school. I would see a lot of familiar faces on the train because of this, but we never really made conversation with each other. Until one night, when I got out of work late because some asshole wanted to sit in the restaurant past closing. Thanks to them, I missed my train. The next one wasn't scheduled to arrive for another hour, so having nowhere to go and no money for Lyft or Uber, I sat there waiting. No one was around me, so when this older man showed up, kind of staggering a bit, I assumed that he was another drunken hobo in the city trying to catch a train to sleep in. Something about his face gave me deja vu, but I shrugged it off, thinking maybe I've just seen him on the train here before. He made his way over to me, much to my discomfort, and started up a conversation. He wasn't slurring, but the way he was looking down at me gave me goosebumps. He asked me why I was out there so late, all by myself. I had to reply as not to anger him. I mean, we were alone, and he was close enough to me to pull out a knife or something. Anyway, I told him that I was waiting for the train. He asked me which one. Now, the train was color-coded with a strip on the top to indicate whether it was going north, south, east, or west areas. I took blue, but I lied and said that I took green. He looked at the schedule above the benches and saw that the green train was coming in 15 minutes, so he said that he would keep me company. For those extremely long 15 minutes, he asked me how long I had been working at So-So Restaurant. This made my blood run cold. I never told him where I worked, so I looked at him and very timidly answered, "For about a year." He laughed. He said, "Wow, it's already been a whole year, huh?" At this point, my skin was itching out of anxiety, and as soon as the green train came, I knew that I had no choice but to take it. I said goodbye to him and thanked him for the chat, hoping that would be the end of it. Nope, he suddenly told me that he took the green train too, so he followed me on and sat in a seat right behind me. My mind was racing about whether he was going to try and do something to me, like chloroform me or hurt me, in some way or other, but we rode the train in silence. I was trying to figure out how I was going to lose him. There weren't many people riding the train at that hour. Our car was empty, unfortunately. As the ride went on in a menacing silence, I could feel him staring down the back of my head. I waited until we got to a stop where there was another person, and I was so relieved to see a woman sitting there. She wasn't boarding, so I immediately got off the train, and the man followed me, as expected. I took a seat on the bench next to hers, close enough for her to see and hear everything going on, hoping that she would catch on. The man had noticed that I was sniffling, allergies, and being out in the cold, and asked if I was sick. I told him no, but he insisted on giving me these weird pills he had that were supposedly cold medicine. I declined in a louder voice. "Sorry, I don't accept pills from strangers." This prompted the lady to look at us, and I made eye contact with her. She knew now. Now this went on until a blue train came, and the lady got up, giving me a look that told me to get on with her. So without explanation, I did. She waved me over to sit next to her, and when the man tried to follow, she said, "No, you go sit over there." Made him sit a couple of seats across from us. He chose the one where he would face us, and stared at me the entire time. I was shaking and about to burst into tears. The woman leaned over and whispered to me that she had a pistol. I felt safer with her there. We whispered back and forth about what happened. I told her where I lived and how I was worried that he would follow me home. She told me a friend of hers would be boarding the train soon, and when he did, she told me that his name was Ray. Ray was filled in about everything and agreed to escort me home. She promised me that I could trust him. The two of them waited with me until I got to my stop. The man was still watching me, started to smile widely, resembling the Cheshire Cat. He shouted, "This is your place, right?" To which I didn't respond, and just gave the woman a hug and thanked her. Ray and I hurriedly hopped off the train, and as I looked back, I saw that the woman had pulled out her pistol and told the man to sit back down, even blocking the exit with her body. I finally let myself cry in relief. Ray walked me home and tried to calm me down by telling me about his job and his family. After watching me get inside the gates of my apartment safely, I thanked him profusely for his help.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.